let's talk about my top 10 favorite books for writers. And this is maybe not the top 10 greatest books ever written about writing, okay? The most important thing about any book for you as a writer is it useful? Is it helpful? Does it teach you something you didn't know? Does it unlock something that helps give you momentum, forward momentum into your creative journey and along your creative path? So let's talk about them. Number one, and this is not top 10 in any order of value. This is kind of building upon foundations. So the book that helped me finish writing my first novel, and this one hasn't been published, but it helped me finish for the first time. It helped me get through to the end. And that is The Marshall Plan for Novel Writing by Evan Marshall. Evan Marshall is, or was at least, a literary agent. And I read this back in, the dark ages, 1998 or 1999. I had bought the book and the workbook. And what it does is help you sort of plan out. Now, this is really for beginners. This is to help you understand kind of the science behind novel structure, really gets you into the sense of scene and sequel, or action and reaction, the back and forth, the interplay between what happens to the characters and how the characters respond. Really gets you into a rhythm, to figure out how that rhythm works, and to really help you understand how to get from point A to point B. If you need a roadmap and you're absolutely a beginner, if you can find this book, it's a fantastic book for the absolute beginner. It's not really going to help somebody who already knows how to write a novel. It's not for you. It is literally written for beginners, and that would be a good one to find if you could find it. Number two is The Story Solution by Eric Edson. Now, Eric Edson I first heard of on the YouTube channel Film Courage, where he was being interviewed, and they do snippets of interviews, and then you can go and find the full interview on their YouTube channel. Well, Eric Edson teaches at Cal State Northridge, I believe, in Los Angeles. He teaches screenwriting. He has been a script doctor. He has written some, but mostly he teaches and mentors. And The Story Solution is really a book about screenplay structure. But what's really helpful is The Story Solution gives you concrete examples from screenplays. And there are 3 screenplays now. It's been a while since I've read it. One of them I think is Star Wars. One might be The Godfather. I can't remember for sure. But it uses 3 very famous screenplays, walks you through how the structure is laid out, all the reasons why you do things. Very, very helpful in getting you to understand the structure of screenplays, but can also be used to understand novels, because he does talk about different novels as well. Another one just like it, number 3, is The Anatomy of Story by John Truby. These books are really designed to help you get into the weeds, to get into the mechanics of story structure. Why do stories work the way they do? How does an author or a screenwriter lay out the events of the story in a way that makes sense to the viewer, that is interesting, and that wraps up in a, I don't want to say acceptable fashion, in a pleasing fashion, in a satisfying fashion, a satisfactory fashion. You know, how do you satisfy the audience? And so The Story Solution and The Anatomy of Story both have slightly different approaches. The Anatomy of Story has a lot more detail in the structures, or details in the structure, and can really help you unlock a lot of things. I've got The Anatomy of Story right here. It's not a thick book. It's very, I've made a lot of highlights in this book, like The Anatomy of Story, another one by Mr. Truby here. The Anatomy of Genres. How story forms explain the way the world works. And so, The Anatomy of Genres, he poses it as a wheel running from horror through action, myth, memoir, coming of age, science fiction, crime, comedy, western, gangster, fantasy, thriller, detective, and love story. Love story as the highest ideal. So basically, it walks you through kind of, he puts it on a continuum. And it's a very interesting way of structuring the book, but he goes in depth into each of these genres and relates it to the 7 steps from The Anatomy of Story. But in each genre, there's several different story beats, which not all of them are critical. Not all of them have to be in your chosen genre. This is also really effective when you want to mix genres. So fantasy and myth often go together. So you might look at those and go, oh, what are the elements of each of these genres? How do I blend those together? How does that relate to the idea in my head? In my case, I'm mixing Western and a crime story or mystery or detective, a Western and a detective story. Both of those genres have different ways that they express themselves, different ideals. One of the story beats in the Western is the idea of civilization. We're building civilization. How do we relate to each other? How do we get past our baser instincts and create order out of chaos? That is an element of the Western. Whereas an element of the detective story is solving the mystery and getting into the mind of the villain and figuring out what all these things mean and solving the puzzle. So you have different elements from different genres that may work together or may not work together. And you can pick and choose, but it's very interesting to get into kind of, they're not genres in the sense that it's a marketing genre, like this is a romance, this is a sci-fi, this is a fantasy. You know, it's not marketing genres. It's more story form genres. And so it's very, very interesting. And again, he's another screenwriter. He's another script doctor. So many things that we use from screenwriting can be applied to novels just as well. Number 5 is 20 Master Plots by Ronald B. Tobias. And I just started re-listening to this audiobook. I want to get the paperback, but right now I just have the audiobook that I've been listening to. He doesn't just strictly focus on plot as the events of the story. He really ties it back into the journey of your characters and how your characters respond and how that relates to the type of plot that you're using. These are somewhat related to the genres that John Truby talks about. So what are some of these plots? Well, you have, number 1, the quest. The quest plot, The Lord of the Rings. Plot 2, the adventure plot. Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Plot 3, Pursuit, Catch Me If You Can, from Steven Spielberg, Tom Hanks, and Leonardo DiCaprio. Plot 4, Rescue, Adventures in Babysitting. That's a really good selection if you want to, again, get in depth in the craft of storytelling. And this covers some really crucial ground, is understanding how these different plots work and why. Now, number 6, Sometimes the Magic Works by Terry Brooks. This is better and thinner than Stephen King's On Writing. This has a lot more practical information for you. It's part part autobiography, part memoir, and part craft book. He's the creator of the Shannara series, The Sword of Shannara. They had a TV series based on that on MTV once, and the Elfstones of Shannara. And he also wrote the novelizations of The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, and various other works from Terry Brooks there. So that's a good one to look at. Another good one is The Art of Creative Writing by Lajos Egra, I think is how you say that. And what that book does is really get into the psychology of characters, understanding character motivation, and how do we express the attitudes and journeys of a character in our writing. Extremely good, extremely well written, and really it's a little more philosophical than scientific. Really kind of helps you open up your observational skills and your critical thinking skills and how you imagine the characters. So really, really good. Much better than something like Bird by Bird or I don't know. I really enjoy it. Now, here's where we get out of the writing books and into something a little different. Number 8 is The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. This is an incredibly interesting book because he goes into the world of advertising and how certain companies reach people and create new habits around their products via marketing, and then goes into how we can build better habits in our own lives. And it's a little more historical, a little more, here's what Johnson & Johnson did about XYZ in this campaign. And so the things you learn from it are kind of things you just sort of pick up on and understand how your own brain has been affected by marketing ploys. And there's a little bit at the end of the book that's really practical, but it kind of relates to all the previous chapters, and you sort of put it all together and understand how you can create better habits for yourself. Just a really interesting book. Number 9 is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. Now, that's a weird title for a book. It's not a science fiction book, believe it or not. It actually comes from psycho, meaning the soul, and cybernetics actually is from the Greek that means guiding a ship. So what it really should have been called is probably The Power of the Self-Image, or how to create a powerful self-image, or what have you. It's essentially a really good study about getting into your own head and figuring out why you believe the things that you believe, the beliefs that are holding you back, where they may come from, and how to see yourself in a more positive light if you have an unhealthy self-image, how to view yourself in a healthy way. The last one in the top 10 is this book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. This book is all about finding your strengths, your individual strengths, and playing to those strengths. It's about getting into what he calls your zone of genius and living there as much as possible. So there's 4 zones, according to Gay Hendricks. There's the zone of incompetence. Those are tasks that we are not good at, we can't do, they're not for us. Those are things we shouldn't really be spending our time doing. So if you're not very good at math, or you don't want to do your own taxes unless you're walking through a very basic online one like I do. So doing taxes with itemization and that kind of thing may not be for you. That might be your zone of incompetence. Then there's the zone of competence. Yeah, I can replace the front brakes on my car. Yeah, it saves some money on labor. Do I want to be doing that? No. But I can do it if I need to. Then there's the zone of excellence. These are things we're good at. We can do this. This may be what we do for a living. This may be our job, the thing that pays the bills. We're good enough at it, so we do it. We get paid, whatever. But the fourth zone is your zone of genius, and that is the zone of activities that you are specifically suited to do that nobody else does quite like you do or as well as you do. Now, there are people that do things as well as us, but as I said, it's the way that we do them that is unique to us, that is where we really come alive and where we really get our best results. And that's where we want to try to spend more time in our lives. So that's the top 10, my top 10 favorite books for writers. There are some bonus books. Secrets of the Heinlein Juvenile by J. Daniel Sawyer. This, I don't call it a tome, but it's hefty. And what this is Dan goes through the all of Robert A. Heinlein's juvenile novels and what we might call young adult today. And he outlines each of the books in detail, talks about what makes them great, what makes them enduring, what makes them last, what makes people keep coming back to them over and over again over the years. Why have they lasted so long, and why did they hold their appeal? And he talks about how Heinlein actually had a specific way of structuring these books that sort of gives them the juice, that gives them that universal appeal. So a really, really good book to get into, The Secrets of the Heinlein Juvenile. Heinlein Juvenile by J. Daniel Sawyer. Mindset by Carol S. Dweck. This is where we get the concept you may have heard people talking about, the concept of a growth mindset. But this book gets into the different mindsets, the growth mindset and the not growth mindset, whatever that is. Chapters like, the sports, the mindset of a champion, business, mindset and leadership, relationships, mindsets in love or not, parents, teachers, and coaches, where do mindsets come from, and changing mindsets. Now, this was given to me at the school that I worked at. A lot of us read that book. It's very helpful in understanding how to help kids have more of a growth mindset so that they can believe that things are possible and not immediately close off and believe that things are impossible. That's kind of what that's about. And lastly, no self-help session would be complete without this guy, Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. It's also a little hefty. This is 530-something pages with index. So this is an extraordinarily in-depth book. Well, I want to say it's about mindset, but like the Gay Hendricks book, which is much smaller and much more digestible, it's about uncovering your limiting beliefs, the things that are holding you back, and overcoming them. And they're all kind of about mindset. So those are my top 13 books for writers, my favorite ones. That Psycho-Cybernetics book will change your life, especially if you've struggled, suffered. I've tried to say suffered and struggled at the same time. If you suffered from your self-image, then yeah, Psycho-Cybernetics, very, very good book. You can find that in libraries. Let me encourage you too, if you have a local library, find out what their ebook app is. My local library uses the Hoopla app, where you can find a lot of really great ebooks and audiobooks, TV shows. Yeah, you can find a TV at a library. TV shows, movies, music, all kinds of stuff that through your local library you can check out for free. So I encourage you to do that because there's a lot of great resources that you're missing out on if you're not using that. So if you want to be a good arch geekologist, you got to get into the library, right? Okay.